Blade and Sorcery Nomad is a full-body physics combat game, and its entire pitch is that there's no combo list, no button sequence, no fixed way to fight. You swing a sword the way you'd actually swing a sword, throw a dagger the way you'd actually throw a dagger, and the game's physics engine figures out the rest, meaning two players can approach the exact same fight in completely different ways and both find something that works. It launched years ago as an early access title and built a reputation as one of the defining games of Quest VR. But early access games have a habit of getting abandoned once the initial hype fades. Blade and Sorcery Nomad didn't follow that pattern, and in 2026, it's more actively updated than it's ever been. This video covers what the game actually is, what changed this year, and whether it earns a spot on your headset today, not just back when it launched. The biggest recent addition is the Rakta update, a free content drop that finally added katanas to the game, which had been one of the single most requested and most modded weapons since launch. Alongside katanas, it brought throwable shurikens, dagger-like size, kamas, a large blunt weapon called the kanabo, and glaives, plus new armor pieces and lore tying it all together. This isn't a paid expansion or a season pass, it's free content added directly into the base game, which matters because a lot of early access VR titles start charging for content once they hit a stable player base. Warp Frog, the studio behind it, has instead kept building the game out for free years after most studios would have moved on to a sequel. If you played Nomad at launch and haven't opened it since, the weapon roster alone is different enough now to feel like a meaningfully bigger game than the one you remember. The Rakta update is actually just the first of 4 planned free content drops for 2026, collectively called the Bayeth updates, with Centaura, Kartib, and Madlu still to come. The Centaura update, which followed Rakta, already added an entirely new faction along with its own weapons, armor, lore, and a dedicated map themed around it. So this isn't a one-time content dump, it's a full year of planned, sustained support. Each themed update so far has also included balance adjustments based on direct community feedback gathered between releases, rather than changes made in isolation by the dev team alone, which is part of why the tone of the game has stayed consistent even as the content list has grown substantially since launch. For a game that's been out this long, that's an unusual commitment, and it's part of why the community around it has stayed active instead of drifting to whatever's newest on the store. For anyone who's played the PC VR version of Blade and Sorcery with mods, there's a specific technical update worth knowing about. Scripting 2, which brings Nomad's modding compatibility roughly 90% of the way to matching the PC version, meaning most PC scripted mods now work on the standalone Quest version without much adjustment. That's a meaningful shift, because mods have always been a huge part of what kept the PC version feeling fresh. New weapons, new enemy types, entirely new game modes built by the community. For a studio-supported game to actively invest in matching its own PC modding ecosystem on a standalone headset is still unusual in VR, where standalone versions typically ship as stripped-down ports rather than genuine feature parity. For Quest-only players, this is arguably a bigger deal than any single weapon added in an official update. Numbers matter more than adjectives here, so here's the actual data. Blade and Sorcery Nomad sits at an average of 4.5 out of 5 stars on the Meta Quest Store, based on more than 50,000 reviews as of this year. That's not a small sample size padded by early hype, that's a rating built up and sustained over years of ownership, including from players who bought it back at launch and are rating it again after everything that's changed since. A high rating with a review count that large is a much stronger signal than a shiny new release with a few hundred 5-star reviews from day one, because it reflects long-term satisfaction, not launch excitement that fades once the honeymoon period ends. Whatever your expectations going in, the data says this is a game people keep coming back to, not one they finish once and shelve. Now the honest part. This is still a physics-based game, which means the combat is deliberately unpolished compared to a hand-animated action game. Things clip, weapons occasionally behave strangely, and the movement can feel loose if you're expecting the tight combat of a traditional game. If precision and consistency matter more to you than freedom and chaos, that's worth knowing before you buy, because it's a permanent feature of how the game works, not a bug later updates are going to remove. It also physically demands more from you than most VR games. Sessions involve real swinging, ducking, and throwing motions, so if you're looking for a seated, low-effort experience, this isn't it. Neither of those things make it a bad game, they just mean it's not built for everyone, and knowing that going in saves you a wasted download and a disappointed first session. So, is Blade and Sorcery Nomad still worth it in 2026? Based on 4 free major content updates planned for this year alone, a rating that's held steady at 4.5 stars across more than 50,000 reviews, and modding support that now nearly matches the PC version, the answer is yes, and arguably it's a better time to start than launch ever was. If you already own it and haven't opened it in a while, the Rakta update alone is worth reinstalling for. Tomorrow's video ranks the 7 horror games on Quest 3 actually worth being scared by this year, so if physics combat isn't your thing but VR horror is, that one's for you. Subscribe if today's review helped you decide. Here's the question for the comments. If you've played Nomad since the Rakta update, has a new weapon actually changed how you fight?